The 1970s were the golden age of rock and roll. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, and The Who dominated the conversation and filled the stadiums. But beneath those towering names, there were bands that made extraordinary music, sold out shows, and built devoted followings, only to be slowly erased from the mainstream story. These are 15 rock acts from the 70s that deserve to be remembered, and once you hear their names again, you will wonder how you ever forgot them.
Oh yeah, right here tonight.
Before Van Halen rewrote the rules of hard rock, there was Montrose. Formed in 1973 by guitarist Ronnie Montrose, the band featured a young Sammy Hagar on vocals, years before he would become one of the biggest frontmen in rock. Their self-titled debut was a shot of pure adrenaline, a record so raw and powerful that it became a blueprint for the entire hard rock movement that followed. Rock the Nation and Bad Motor Scooter were ferocious tracks that hit with the force of a freight train, driven by Ronnie Montrose's razor-sharp riffs and Hagar's explosive voice. The album was lean, mean, and completely uncompromising in its energy. Despite its massive influence, Montrose never achieved the commercial success they deserved. Hagar left after the first album, and the band struggled to find the same magic again. But anyone who knows the history of hard rock knows the truth. Without Montrose, the sound of the late 70s and 80s would have been very different. UFO might be the most criminally underrated band of the entire decade. When German-born guitarist Michael Schenker joined the British group in 1973, something extraordinary happened. The band transformed from a decent hard rock act into one of the most electrifying live bands on the planet. Schenker's playing was fluid, emotional, and technically dazzling, and it elevated everything around him. Their 1977 album Lights Out was a masterpiece of melodic hard rock. The title track, Too Hot to Handle, and Dr. Doctor became anthems for a generation of guitarists who studied Schenker's every note. Their live album Strangers in the Night is still considered one of the greatest live rock recordings ever made. Yet UFO never broke through to mainstream stardom. They were a musician's band, revered by their peers but overlooked by the masses. If you have never explored their catalog, you are missing one of the 70s greatest kept secrets. Which underrated band from this era do you think deserved to be as big as Zeppelin or Purple? Before Thin Lizzy made twin lead guitars famous, Wishbone Ash was already doing it. Formed in 1969, the band pioneered the harmony guitar approach that would go on to influence countless acts. Andy Powell and Ted Turner wove their guitars together in a way that was melodic, intricate, and utterly captivating. Their 1972 album Argus is widely regarded as one of the finest records of the decade. Tracks like The King Will Come and Warrior combined progressive structures with hard rock power and folk-influenced melodies that created a sound entirely their own. The album was epic in scope yet deeply personal in its emotional delivery. Wishbone Ash toured relentlessly throughout the 70s and built a loyal following, particularly in Europe. But they never achieved the household recognition of their peers, and over time their name faded from most conversations about the era. It is a loss, because Argus alone should have guaranteed them a permanent place in rock history. Long before Metallica covered Breadfan and introduced a new generation to their music, Budgie was quietly laying the groundwork for heavy metal in a way that few bands could match. This Welsh power trio formed in 1967 and spent the 70s releasing albums that were heavier, faster, and more aggressive than almost anything their contemporaries were doing. Their riffs were monstrous. Tracks like In for the Kill and Crash Course in Brain Surgery combined the heaviness of Black Sabbath with a speed and precision that pointed directly toward the thrash metal explosion of the 80s. Burke Shelley's high-pitched vocals and thundering bass gave the band a unique identity that set them apart from every other heavy act of the era. Budgie never had the commercial machine behind them that other bands enjoyed. They remained underground heroes, beloved by fellow musicians and metal fans who discovered them through word of mouth. Their influence far exceeds their fame, and that is both their legacy and their tragedy. Camel was one of the most beautiful and criminally overlooked bands of the progressive rock movement. While Yes and Genesis grabbed the spotlight, Camel quietly crafted albums of stunning emotional depth and musical sophistication. Andrew Latimer's guitar work was lyrical and expressive, capable of moving from delicate passages to soaring crescendos that could bring tears to your eyes. Their 1975 album, The Snow Goose, was a fully instrumental concept album inspired by the Paul Gallico novella. It was tender, sweeping, and cinematic, in a way that few rock records have ever achieved. Moon Madness followed with songs that balanced accessibility and complexity in perfect measure. Camel deserved to stand alongside the giants of Prague, but they were always a step behind in terms of recognition. For those who discovered them, though, the reward was a catalog of music that remains as moving today as it was 5 decades ago. Had one of the most distinctive voices in all of 70s rock. Dan McCafferty sang with a raspy, soulful growl that could shift from tender vulnerability to savage power in the span of a single verse. The Scottish band spent the decade releasing albums that blended hard rock, blues, and balladry with a consistency that few of their peers could match. Their 1975 cover of Love Hurts became a worldwide hit and remains one of the most recognizable power ballads ever recorded. But Nazareth was far more than that one song. Hair of the Dog was a crushing hard rock anthem, and their album of the same name was packed with gritty, uncompromising tracks that showcased the band at their heaviest. Despite steady touring and a devoted international fan base, Nazareth never received the level of recognition that their catalog warranted. They were a working-class rock band in every sense, and their music carried that honesty in every note. When Robin Trower left Procol Harum and launched his solo career, he created some of the most soulful, blues-drenched guitar music the 70s ever produced. His 1974 album, Bridge of Sighs, is considered a masterpiece of blues rock, a record so atmospheric and emotionally rich that it feels like stepping into another world entirely. Trower's tone was thick, warm, and unmistakable. His playing drew inevitable comparisons to Jimi Hendrix, but Trower had a voice of his own on the instrument, slower, more deliberate, and drenched in a melancholy that gave every note weight. The title track and Day of the Eagle were towering achievements in guitar-driven rock. Bridge of Sighs went gold and earned Trower a strong following, but mainstream fame always eluded him. He remained a guitarist's guitarist, respected deeply by those who knew, but never quite reaching the wider audience his talent deserved. Gentle Giant was progressive rock taken to its most adventurous extreme. This British band refused to repeat themselves on any album, constantly shifting styles, experimenting with medieval music, jazz, classical, and complex time signatures that made even their prog contemporaries sound conventional by comparison. Albums like Octopus and The Power and the Glory were dense, intricate, and rewarding for listeners willing to invest the effort. Their vocal harmonies were astonishing, their instrumental interplay was virtuosic, and their ambition was limitless. Gentle Giant never courted mainstream success and made no compromises for radio play. That integrity cost them commercially, but earned them one of the most devoted cult followings in rock history. For those who crave music that challenges and surprises, Gentle Giant remains an endless source of discovery. Have you ever stumbled across a band so complex that it changed the way you listen to music entirely?
In a black hole, hiding from the mirror.
Atomic Rooster emerged from the ashes of the crazy world of Arthur Brown and spent the early 70s creating some of the heaviest, most organ-driven rock of the era. Vincent Crane's keyboard work was dark, aggressive, and utterly dominant, giving the band a sound that was unlike anything else in rock at the time. Their 1971 album, Death Walks Behind You, was a masterpiece of proto-metal atmosphere. The title track was brooding and menacing, while Devil's Answer became a hit single that showcased the band's ability to craft hooks within their heavy framework. Lineup instability and shifting trends worked against them, and Atomic Rooster faded from view before the decade was half over. But their best work remains a powerful reminder of how innovative and fearless early 70s rock could be. Captain Beyond was a supergroup that should have been massive. Featuring Rod Evans, the original vocalist of Deep Purple, alongside members of Iron Butterfly and Johnny Winter's band, they had the pedigree and the talent to conquer the world. Their self-titled debut in 1972 was a dazzling blend of hard rock, prog, and jazz fusion that moved between styles with breathtaking fluidity. The album flowed as one continuous piece, tracks bleeding into each other seamlessly. Creating an experience that felt more like a journey than a collection of songs. The musicianship was extraordinary, the arrangements were inventive, and the energy was relentless. Yet Captain Beyond barely made a ripple commercially. Poor promotion, bad timing, and the sheer difficulty of categorizing their sound kept them from reaching the audience they deserved. Today, they remain one of the 70s best-kept secrets, a band that everyone who discovers them wishes they had found sooner. Pavlov's Dog was one of the strangest and most beautiful bands to emerge from the American rock scene in the mid-70s. David Surkamp's voice was unlike anything else in rock, a piercing, operatic tenor that soared over lush arrangements of strings, mellotron, and layered guitars. It was dramatic, emotional, and completely unforgettable. Their 1975 debut, Pampered Menial, was a stunning record that blended progressive rock with folk, classical, and art rock influences into something deeply original. Julia and Song Dance were compositions of extraordinary beauty and ambition. The band never achieved commercial success, hampered by label issues and the difficulty of marketing something so unique. But those who found Pampered Menial never forgot it. It is one of those rare albums that feels like a personal discovery, a treasure hidden in plain sight. Cactus was pure power. Formed in 1970 by guitarist Jim McCarty and drummer Carmine Appice, with bassist Tim Bogert and vocalist Rusty Day, this band played a heavy, blues-based rock that hit like a wall of sound. They were loud, aggressive, and absolutely ferocious in concert. Their debut, One Way or Another, was a statement of intent, packed with crushing riffs and raw energy that put them in the same conversation as early Led Zeppelin and Grand Funk Railroad. Parchman Farm and You Can't Judge a Book by the Cover were highlights that showcased a band playing at full throttle with zero restraint. Cactus burned bright but briefly. Internal tensions and competing egos pulled them apart before they could fully capitalize on their momentum. They remain one of the heaviest and most overlooked bands of the early 70s. Stray was a British hard rock band that spent the early 70s releasing powerful, guitar-driven albums that somehow slipped through the cracks of mainstream recognition. Guitarist Del Bromham was a genuine virtuoso, blending classical technique with raw rock power in a way that few of his contemporaries could match. Their self-titled debut and the follow-up albums were packed with ambitious compositions that moved between delicate acoustic passages and crushing electric sections. All in Your Mind and After the Storm were tracks that showcased a band capable of stunning dynamic range. Stray never broke through beyond a loyal cult following, largely because they lacked the promotional machinery that bigger labels provided. But their recorded output stands as some of the finest and most underappreciated hard rock of the decade. Did you ever discover a band years after their prime and wish you had been there to see them live in their glory days? lasted only 2 albums, but what they left behind was extraordinary. This New York trio, featuring guitarist Richie Wise and a teenage Mark Bell who would later become Marky Ramone, played a punishing brand of heavy rock that was years ahead of its time. Their sound sat somewhere between Black Sabbath's Doom and the raw aggression that punk would later claim as its own. Their 1971 debut and the follow-up Heart Attack were records of raw, unfiltered power. Pull Away and Stone Woman were tracks that combined crushing heaviness with surprisingly sophisticated songwriting. Dust disappeared almost as quickly as they arrived, but their brief catalog has been rediscovered by successive generations of heavy music fans who recognize just how far ahead of the curve they were. Blitz was a short-lived power trio that released 2 albums at the dawn of the 70s and then vanished. But those 2 records, particularly their self-titled debut from 1970, packed more raw heaviness and invention into their grooves than most bands managed in entire careers. Guitarist James Black played with a ferocity and a tone that was astonishing for its time. Smoking the Day Away and I Don't Know were slabs of heavy blues rock that anticipated the stoner and doom metal movements by decades. The drumming of Tony Newman added a jazz-influenced complexity that kept the music from ever becoming predictable. May Blitz is virtually unknown outside of deep collector circles, and that is a shame. For anyone willing to dig into the forgotten corners of early 70s rock, this band is a revelation waiting to happen. 15 bands that the mainstream forgot, but the music never did. The 70s were deeper and wider than the classic rock radio playlist ever let on. Tell us in the comments which of these 15 bands you already knew, and